Hello, and welcome to the Northern Souls podcast. I'm your host, Zeke, and I am joined again by my lovely wife, Keegan.
Hi.
So, the purpose of this podcast will be to discuss, explore, and educate others on Norse paganism. Ultimately, our goal is to find the good life. So, last week I did just a little short video on the importance of community, and I kind of just wanted to expand on that with more real world examples because the purpose of those short videos is just to be a good 5 minutes, just kind of introducing people into a concept. It's not supposed to be this big long drawn out thing.
Right.
That's what this podcast is for, is a long form version of just kind of discussing and opining on things. So yeah, specifically I wanted to focus on community in the context of celebrating holidays and just
special events, things like that.
Yeah, and then just comparing the differences between doing it solo and then doing it with other people, because I've kind of had to do a number of holidays by myself just because I wasn't with other people who also celebrated, and it just sucks. It sucks.
Well, and how many times did I want to join you when we first started dating, but I couldn't because of work?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, and then my schedule was just terrible because I worked nights and a full-time student, and yeah, when we first started dating, we only saw each other once a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, definitely compared to when you're doing, because I've also done holidays digitally, where you do the bloat digitally
via FaceTime or Skype or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely better than doing it by yourself, but it's still just not the same. It's kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's just, there's an energy and there's a feeling when you're actually with people.
Yeah.
It was like that first holiday you were at, Keegan, for May Day, where
it's the first time being born and raised Catholic that I even really knew what May Day was.
Yeah.
And when I was explaining to my parents, Zeke invited me to a May Day celebration, they both kind of looked at me like, oh, so heathen stuff. And I didn't even know any kind of connotation with it before. So it was the first major, heathen holiday that I participated in. But I loved it because there was over 10 people there.
Yes. Yeah.
And we did the maypole, which was really cool. I did a rune pole, rune casting stuff, and had a nice feast all together, and talked about, did toasting to ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
And shared some stories about those people that we appreciated in our lives, and what our hopes and goals were for the coming months.
Yeah.
And I really loved it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and with that one especially, because I don't know how perhaps other people celebrated, but we had everybody, obviously grabs a ribbon, and what we did was we wrote our surname on the end of it. And then, everybody, goes around and all the ribbons get wrapped up together.
Right, which was fun.
Yeah, and then, the whole point was, seeing, even though each individual ribbon was a family line, we were all connected somewhere along the way.
We had a wide range of ages there represented.
Oh, yeah.
Because, there was a 70-year-old woman there.
Yeah.
And a couple of boomers. And then, the 40 and 30-year-olds and their kids, there was real youngins there, and then there was us in our 20s.
Yep.
And it's it was really cool just seeing a community come together like that. And it's we're not all family in that group.
Right.
And, I was just your girlfriend at that point.
Right.
But it was really neat. And, I didn't feel any animosity or weirdness or, ooh, this is heathen magic, oh, coming from it. It was just a really cool celebration, and it was just neat having everybody come together like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a community like that is absolutely essential to Norse paganism. I mean, it's a religion where community, friendship, and togetherness is essential.
Yeah.
You know. And I mean, I would definitely say that while there certainly are wrong ways to practice Norse paganism, there certainly aren't any right ways. Like,
right. There's not a ground set of rules with this.
yeah, like I would say like a wrong way would be like, I don't venerate any of the gods of the Norse pantheon, but I'm totally a Norse. No, you're not. You're something else. You know, I don't venerate my ancestor. You're not. You're something else. You know, but for someone to say there's one right way, I would just totally disagree with that.
Right. Like, we can share what we think is the right way and what we are personally doing, but that doesn't mean that it's right for everybody. Or it also means that we can change our minds in the future too if we come across other research, other
spiritual perspectives, in any number of things. Because that's the other thing too, to only look at historical sources and then try to practice this religion exactly how they did it. It's just not possible. Gonna work. It's just not possible because we don't live in an agrarian society anymore. And you know, there's also so many holes in history where we just don't have information. Sometimes you kind of do have to
make do with what you can do.
Yeah. Or try to figure out, well, how would we practice this today in this world, in this kind of a society? You know, then again, I would also say that doesn't mean you should just be going willy-nilly, just kind of making up everything as you go either. Right. It's a bit of both, you know?
Yeah. You go with what feels right, what seems right based on your research, and literally out of respect out of the gods.
Yeah.
Foremost.
Yeah, because, you know, I will say our ancestors highly valued tradition. In fact, a lot of times when Christian missionaries would come over and try to convert them, what they would say was like, but this is what my fathers have always done. We have always done things this way. That being said, you know, times change and you kind of have to change with the times too, just to keep things going and to survive.
Right.
You know.
Well, it's like, as much as we can't really like sacrifice a chicken every time we try to do something, you know, or whatever. What we've been doing is we've been leaving out some meat or some wine whenever we pay tribute for the gods, and use that as our offering.
Right. Yeah. Offerings like that. That's, you know, something everybody can do.
Right. Because it's what we can do. Because right now we live in a really busy city.
Yeah.
And we don't have any livestock. We don't have any way of obtaining livestock, and it's just this is what we can do with what we what we have available.
And even if we did, like, I mean, if people saw us doing stuff, not only do we not know how our ancestors did stuff exactly, like we probably get the cops called on us, humane society, all kinds of stuff, you know. So yeah, it's kind of.
But we always make sure we're respectful. We always acknowledge the gods or whoever we're paying tribute to, and we also make sure to light a candle for them and give them their time.
Yeah,
it's like it's what we can do.
Yeah,
and it's like there should never be an excuse of, well, I just can't do this. So
right, and you know, that's what I will say is, you know, in trying to figure out what you can do and is appropriate, I mean, you shouldn't be afraid to experiment. However, I would encourage educated experimentation. And
don't take one guy's opinion on it. I would even say don't take both of our opinions on it. Do your own research and do what you feel feels right.
Yeah. And what I'd also say is, like, you know, if you're doing something and it doesn't feel right, don't keep doing it. Yeah. It's okay to change up, and it's okay to mess up too, because while our ancestors, you know, were brought up and raised in a very robust culture, a very robust pagan culture where this stuff is second nature to them, we don't have that. So it kind of is a path of rediscovery, of trying to figure it out again. And you're gonna make mistakes, and that's okay. So long as you update, so long as you correct anything that you believe was wrong.
Right. That's part of the reason why community is so important too.
Yeah.
It's, being on a path that you all agree on, and then if there is a disagreement, like, you should be able to communicate that
Mm-hmm.
and adapt and change. And going along with community and things, like, it just makes me think of, like, how happy we were on our wedding, right?
Yeah.
And even people who don't practice this way, like, everyone loved our wedding.
Mm-hmm.
They enjoyed it. And, to me, it makes me feel like, well, maybe people should be looking at this way a lot more if they really enjoyed how we celebrated.
Yeah, well, because, like, that's my thing. I think, part of the reason why there's a stigma to paganism in general is either one, people think you're kind of this hokey, weird kind of person who is just trying to, like an edgy teenager, rebel against Christianity.
Yeah.
Or
Goth Lord.
or they think you're a devil worshiper.
Yeah, like,
Either
oh,
or,
you're a part of a cult, you do blood stuff, and
yeah, when it's like, if you actually practice with practicing heathens, like, a lot of it's family oriented, a lot of it's community based, and creating bonds and friendships and stuff. And I think that's something everyone of every faith can get behind and be like, yeah, that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that, even if they don't personally ascribe to those beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess we talked about Deciblo, which the way we observe it is we believe that it occurs on the first full moon, hold on. Anyways, it's like a full moon. This year, it's on October 20th. I could do another short on, like, figuring out dates. Anyways, and obviously, like, we both have jobs and we work on that day, so we can't really practice it, but we are planning on practicing the following Saturday. And for me, especially trying to figure out what holidays to observe and when to observe them, I mean, oh my goodness, you can find so much out there. And even the times of years when you are supposed to celebrate them, let alone, months or days, can vary a lot. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, weren't you saying that you were doing research and you were finding a lot of people were observing it in, like, early spring or something?
Yeah, some people even do it in January, and I'm like, are you sure this is right? Like, we're doing this in October? Okay.
Right.
Because it has stuff to do with winter, too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because, I mean, that's the thing a lot of people may not realize is our ancestors only had 2 seasons, summer and winter, and, we didn't update that until, Christianization, and we were influenced by the Romans. But anyways, I'm basing it in October because it's based off of what I've found in sagas and historical sources, and it's been called multiple names. The one that's most common is Winter Nights, but I'm going ahead with Deciblo just because it's supposed to be dedicated to specifically the Disir, female spirits, and the goddesses, and one spot where it specifically mentioned that it's supposed to be led by women. In the specific source, I think the woman priest who was, like, supposed to lead it, like, was taken hostage by, like, a rival clan or something, and they're like, oh well, can't celebrate it, because that's how important the female role is for that holiday specifically.
Right.
What we're personally doing, just because, again, like we talked about earlier, do what you can and don't worry about what you can't do, is we're just going to have, like, a big, nice dinner.
Yeah, I'm going to make a nice dinner with ham and mashed potatoes and, just make it all feast-like. And I'm going to make some monkey bread because there's a whole thing in the history that you're supposed to make some small cakes and offer that up as an offering. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to make monkey bread, which, if you don't know it, you should look it up. It's delicious. You can make it sweet. You can also make it savory. I prefer the sweet version, so that's what I'm making. And I'm going to have that be as a small cake. in this situation. And when we first moved here, I made sure that we had a dedicated space and altar for the gods and goddesses, of course, too. And what we're going to do, and what we usually do for the holidays, is we usually open up with lighting a candle to whoever we are giving an offering to. Mm-hmm. In this case, it'll be a candle for Frigga, a candle for Freya, and another candle representing the other female spirits and mm-hmm. ancestors. And we'll open it up. We're gonna reflect upon how women have affected us positively this year, mm-hmm. and just give thanks to our female ancestors. And also, I'm planning on, this is just for us for personal history, but it was a way to honor my ancestors. Both of my grandparents that are related, or grandmothers specifically, I have a funny memory with them, but they both really enjoyed this alcoholic punch I made one time. And I'm going to make that again and offer that as an offering instead of just normal mead like we usually do. Because it's just another way to honor female spirits and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was fun and just feels right. Yeah.
Well, another thing we were going to do too, because we're actually fortunate enough that the city we live in, there's a cemetery there where both of us have ancestors buried. Yes. So we're going to go over there, visit them, leave some flowers, clean up their graves, if they're dirty or anything like that, Yeah,
because ancestor worship and respect is very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I figured that'd be appropriate because, from what I was hearing, historically speaking, this would be a time when people would visit an ancestor's burial mound and sit on top of it and maybe meditate or something like that. And obviously, that isn't really an option anymore. So again, this is something in how our society's customs have changed. So we're doing what we can, and that's something we can do is visit their graves and make sure that they're clean, they're taken care of. And,
especially before the snow hits and that just gets more difficult.
Yeah, and that, someone still cares about them.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. It's actually the first time I've celebrated this one because, when I was first introduced to this religion, I was told that there's 8 holidays and they begin on the 1st or the 21st of any given month. And just through my own personal research, it does look like that isn't what our Norse and Germanic ancestors observed. It looks like that's probably an influence. Well,
did they even have a 1st and 21st of the month, really?
No, they followed a lunar calendar. Yeah. They didn't even follow a solar calendar, and that's why holidays are based on moons. But it does look like that's a Wiccan influence, which, hey, if you practice Wicca, this isn't me hating on you. Yeah. I'm just saying if I wanted to be a Wiccan, I'd practice Wicca, and that's not what I'm trying to practice. I'm trying to practice, Norse paganism. Right. And just because it's difficult to find stuff on holidays, because a lot of it wasn't written down until, 200 years after Christianization, doesn't mean it's not a worthy pursuit, a noble pursuit to figure it out. And personally, from my own research, it honestly looks like there were only 3 holidays observed throughout the year. One being Dieselblot, like we've already mentioned. They would also do Yule. And at least for the Norse, they would do Sigerblot, which is basically means victory bloat or victory sacrifice. And they would do that in mid-April, early May. That they would sacrifice for good luck and victory in raiding. So when that one comes around, we're probably going to have to do that one a little bit differently. Raiding is frowned upon now.
A little bit illegal.
Yeah. But originally, for the April one, it used to practice Easter or Ostara, and I can only find an Anglo-Saxon reference to it. I believe it's pronounced Oestra or Orestra. I'm probably pronouncing that terribly, and I don't care. And that is possibly a spring goddess, but the only person who wrote it down was a Bede, who was a Christian missionary who is very biased in his writings, and even more so than a lot of other Christian missionaries. And it's really hard to know if anything he's writing down is true and what's BS. So for now, that's what I'm observing. That being said, there certainly are holidays that I've practiced that maybe weren't historically practiced, but like I still really like them, and I think they're really good. Like the May Day celebration.
Yeah.
I personally haven't seen, a strong source that was practiced by, our pagan ancestors. But I still really liked it. I think it has a really good message about that ties us to our ancestors and to each other and our community. And I think that's extremely valuable. So I wouldn't want to just throw it away just because, this wasn't practiced in history.
Right.
And also, when I first started practicing Yule, I was told that, it's a 12 nights and 12 days. And what you were supposed to do for each day, you would think about the corresponding month. So during the night, you think about, on the first night of Yule, you'd think about that previous January. And you would burn a Yule log. And while the Yule log's burning, you're with your family. And you're talking about the events of that month and what happened. And then, each night you do the next month. And then during the day, you basically plan out what you were going to do for the upcoming month. And again, historically speaking, I don't think that was practiced, especially
in that way.
Yeah, because that's from the perspective of having a solar calendar.
Right.
But I also think it's really valuable, especially if, you're of the mindset of self-improvement and the improvement of your family. It's extremely valuable to look back onto the past. What worked, what didn't. What hardships did you go through and how'd you deal with them? What victories did you have? And then you plan accordingly for the next year. So I certainly don't want to toss that away either.
Like, I know for me personally, I loved Yule last year because even though as much as a hectic year 2020 was, and it's arguably the worst year we've had together.
Right.
And you can see our previous podcast for more expansion on that. 2020 was terrible.
Right.
However, there were also a lot of good moments. And it made us reflect upon like the good with the bad. And then it also made us more ready for this year. Because we're like, let's make it so this doesn't happen again. What can we do to prepare for that?
Right.
And it made us like go into a better mindset into the coming year. Mm-hmm. And 2021, in my humble opinion, is a lot better than last year. Even though we had basically a hectic start to it. Yeah. We're in a lot better place right now than we were at this time last year, and it's because of the planning and the carefulness that we put into that while we were talking about Yule, that I think that it's gone the way that it has. Mm-hmm. I love Yule. It's amazing.
Yeah, and again, like I have radically different perspectives on how holidays are either should be practiced or were practiced from my previous perceptions, but again, that doesn't mean I'm going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, from, what I was doing. From my earlier days, the way I would practice holidays was influenced by, the leader of that kindred. And while I do believe that he made up a lot of things without telling us he's making them up, I don't think that's inherently wrong because, like I said earlier, there are spots where we got to fill the gaps. I would say that the difference is if you are, practicing something different or quote unquote made up, don't pass it off as history. That's my beef.
Yeah, no, just make it clear, like, this is the way we're doing this, and may not be how it used to be done, but this is why we're doing it this way.
Right.
And, like, it's not to say, like, the things that we used to celebrate are wrong either. Like, there was the all thing. I think there was some fun with that because you guys got to show off some kind of talent, right?
Oh, right, because that's what we did. Because obviously the all thing was basically a legal assembly where people adjudicated disagreements and stuff. But what we would also do is like take it as an opportunity to display our talents, and what we're good at. And, we'd have fun competitions, tug of wars.
A very big community-based
yeah, and that
event.
Yeah, and that one was also pretty fun too. And as far as like the contests and stuff, I'm not sure if that was historically practiced either, but it was really fun and it was a great community builder thing,
Right.
So, I mean, that's also something that going forward, if we actually had, a full community, that I would absolutely continue to include too.
Right. Well, and then there's other holidays and stuff too that we've brought attention to, like the whole Frey and Gerd story, and it's like I really liked that.
Yeah, like for the Charming of the Plow, we did that one. That was when, I was still thinking the 1 in 21 model of 8 holidays a year, and it was in February 1st. And what we did was we made an offering to Frey and Gerd, and we read the story of Frey's wooing of Gerd, or rather, his friend Skirner doing it on his behalf.
Yeah.
And then, just reading that story, and like when you take it at face value, you're like, this is a messed up story. Like this is like, wow, coercion, and oh my goodness. But when you look at the deeper meaning that these are two fertility gods, when you look at it in that way, you're like, okay, this is what they're talking about. If they aren't in union with each other, then this is all the bad stuff that's going to happen. So when you take it to mean that, it's not nearly as messed up as it is on the face of it.
Right.
I just remember your face when I was reading it to you, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Excuse me? What?
Yeah. But my point is, it's like, even though we're deciding like 3 main holidays for practice, that doesn't mean that you can't do other things.
Right.
It's just, that also means...
Well, yeah, like, making offerings. Like, you don't have to wait for a holiday. Like,
right.
Things come up in our lives, and if it's appropriate, go ahead, go for it, Like, you have a baby, or there's a marriage, or even a funeral, the things that aren't normal, expected, every year events. Absolutely. That's what I'm not sure I want to say supposed to do, but it's expected, like human beings across the world, like, have spiritual ways of dealing with those. And there's no reasons why you have to specifically wait for holidays to do things.
Right. Or to even put an offering out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I think that was a pretty good conversation about community and holidays.
Yeah, I think if we went any longer, we'd basically be beating a dead horse. So, I think that'll be about all for today. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to share.
Yeah, if you want us to expand on something too, just let us know.
Absolutely. We can always use more ideas. It's not easy coming up with them on your own. Anyways, until next time.
Bye!